Good morning. Thank you all for joining us for this virtual information session on Automation Alley's PPE Resilience Grant Program for Oakland County manufacturers. So I'm Tom Kelly. I'm the Automation Alley Executive Director and CEO. And I'm pleased to be here today along with Oakland's Deputy County Executive Sean Carlson to share with you the details of this grant program, which really has the potential to be transformative for the Oakland County manufacturing sector. The goal of this grant program, which we've dubbed Project Diamond, is to build a distributed, independent, agile manufacturing on-demand network for personal protective equipment, often referred to as PPE, with up to 300 of the county's small and medium-sized manufacturers. So these manufacturers, you on this call, will help us fight the COVID-19 pandemic and future pandemics without having to rely on other countries to produce critical PPE for our healthcare workers, hospitals, first responders, even our residents. This pandemic has brought to light the urgent need to move Oakland County and the entire state of Michigan, for that matter, into the Industry 4.0 era. And this grant program will position our region as a digital-first manufacturing hub that is resilient, agile, and ready for whatever the future holds. So we encourage you to join us on this digital journey. We know many of you have already reached out and shown interest in this program, but may have questions about whether your company qualifies to receive these Industry 4.0 state-of-the-art digital technologies. You may also be wondering how your company can become part of Automation Alley's Diamond Network that we just spoke about. So we're here today to offer more in-depth program details and to answer your questions. And if you have not done so, go to automationalley.com/PPE after this call, of course, but go to automationalley.com/PPE and make sure you register for the program. So with that, I thank all of you again for being here this morning. And I'm now going to turn it over to Sean Carlson. He's the Oakland County Deputy Executive, and Sean has been critical to the development of this program. And thank you, Sean. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, and thanks to Automation Alley and all of your partners and Pavan. And this pandemic, as Tom has mentioned, has really brought into light the importance of Industry 4.0. I've had the opportunity to work with Automation Alley and Tom and Pavan over the last couple of years in a previous position in the Michigan Defense Center, and the importance of this Industry 4.0. But it has really been highlighted with this pandemic of how important this is. Southeast Michigan in particular has been the hub of R&D and manufacturing for many years, and we sit on that cutting edge. But as Tom mentioned, what really got highlighted in this pandemic is how dependent we were on other foreign countries and manufacturing taking place. That can't happen anymore. So we were the fortunate recipients of the CARES Act, $219 million that we received as a county because we are a population of over 500,000. So we qualified. We have put a lot of resources into economic assistance. $15 million into stabilization funds for small businesses to make sure that they keep their doors open. We just did a recovery grant. We're in the process of awarding that. PPE kits so that businesses could reopen their doors. We have invested over $70 million in our businesses in Oakland County. It is important not only for Oakland County for us to keep our doors open, but for the state of Michigan. Oakland County represents 24% of Michigan's GDP, gross domestic product. We are the tip of the spear. And being the tip of the spear, we needed to look at some projects and how we could keep our manufacturing might alive in the county. And no better partners to turn to than Automation Alley, Tom Kelly, and Pavan. And I am, of all the money that we have distributed so far, this grant is the one that I have the most excitement about because it really offers an opportunity for transformation to take place and independence and reshoring manufacturing back to the U.S. So the opportunity that's in front of us. And so we're really excited about that here at Oakland County and the partnership with Automation Alley to kick this off. So let me just outline a few of the goals that we talked about in developing this grant, just to give you some background on how it got started. So if I could get the first slide. So goal number one is to develop a distributed small manufacturing enterprise network that can produce PPE, personal protection equipment. These are critical supplies for our healthcare personnel, as well as our first responders, as well as our citizens. These are critical supplies for us to get back to doing business as much as normal as possible, but for the safety of our community. So this is what's at hand. No longer, we've been in situations here in Oakland County where we had supplies that we had purchased from China that got taken away from us and redirected in another place. We've had PPE supplies that were import in California and other places around the country that got redirected by FEMA. We want to be able to have more independence of that situation and rely on our know-how right here in Oakland County and our manufacturing might, and make sure that we're lighting up our community in a collective effort to protect our citizens. So this is what we're asking this community. If you are willing to rise to the challenge and join us in this effort to be part of this network that can produce PPE, first and foremost to Oakland County, but also have the opportunity to producing it for other counties in the state of Michigan and the U.S. As well. Next slide. I don't want to be too presumptuous, but the other benefit is this Industry 4.0. And I'm hopeful that most of you understand what that Industry 4.0, but we also want to just make sure. Industry 4.0 is we are in the next industrial revolution. And it is important for our mom and pop manufacturers to continue to survive. They have been the lifeblood, and they are one of the reasons why we have become the global power that we have in regards to putting the world on wheels. But we also think that there's a lot of opportunity, and we want to make sure that our mom and pops don't get weeded out in Industry 4.0. We want to make sure that they're embracing Industry 4.0, that they know that it's here, and that they continue to have the opportunities at their doorstep. So you can see the different industrial revolutions through the year, but we're in the middle, and I shouldn't say middle, but we're in the Industry 4.0 now. Next slide. So what is Industry 4.0? Additive manufacturing, advanced materials, big data, robotics, artificial intelligence, industrial Internet of Things, cybersecurity, cloud computing, all of these words that I'm sure you've heard, but if you haven't, this is what it's all about. And so we need our manufacturing companies to embrace this. Not only is this important for the program that we're putting together for PPE, it'll be increasingly important for the automotive sector. It is already important for the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security. These things are increasingly going to be top requirements in bids and solicitations in the future, and we want to make sure that our manufacturing companies are right there and part of it. So next slide. So why Oakland County? Oakland County is Michigan's hub with nearly 745,000 workers and more than 39,000 businesses. Of more than 2,900 are manufacturers, and we have the North American Industrial Classification System, which is the 31, 32, and 33 NAICS codes is what they're called. And you could see that picture, and that is a clustering of all the manufacturing that we have going on in Oakland County. So we have, as I said before, the know-how, but we also have the manufacturing might to be more independent of the crisis and dependent upon our own manufacturers to help us with this PPE resolution. Next slide. So goal 3 is to drive business vitality and diversification. So we want to make sure that we have a bench so that when there is a rise, if there is a rise that's going to happen with the COVID-19, that we've got suppliers ready to supply for our citizens and for our community here in Oakland County. But we also believe if you are one of the lucky 300 companies to be a part of this, we believe that there's an opportunity for you to diversify your business portfolio and to get into defense contracting or aerospace or non-auto manufacturing. And if you're not in auto, possibly an opportunity to get into auto manufacturing as well. So we believe that this is not just to help us answer and ring the bell to answering the crisis and the call for PPE, but an opportunity for you as a manufacturing company to open up and have an opportunity to diversify your business portfolio. Next slide. So I mentioned this earlier, but the goal for us is to reinvest in our manufacturing companies here in Oakland County and to strengthen the U.S. manufacturing. And we believe that this program takes a giant step towards that goal. So I think that's it for my slides. I thank you very much for being a part of this, and I hope that you're encouraged by what you've heard so far and what you will hear here in the next 30 minutes or so, and we'll be available to answer any questions. I'm going to toss it back to my partner, Tom Kelly from Automation Alley.
Don.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks very much. Great setup. So I do want to say one thing before I introduce the next speaker, and that is you have a Q&A button, everybody who's listening on this Zoom call or watching. And if you have a question, feel free to ask it in that Q&A. We'll try to get to it today. If for some reason we can't get to it, we'll also answer your question offline after the presentation. So don't worry, we'll get all the questions answered, but please ask one if you get one as we're going through this. So now I'd like to introduce Matt Townsend, Matt is the Managing Director of Conway McKenzie, part of Riveron. And Matt's going to share us. He's been a great partner with us in just trying to define this project. And Matt's going to walk us through what is Project Diamond and what are we going to do with it. So Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Sean. And I cannot tell you how excited that we are and all the technology group that's in this node. It is a wickedly exciting project. We cannot wait to get started. Can you move to the next slide, please, Rebecca? So you'll notice that in the watermark on this slide, there's an American flag, and everybody who is on our technology group and part of this was in the front line when the pandemic first came, trying to make anything we possibly could, whether it was face shields, whether it was parts for the GM or Ford ventilator system. You'll see a quick video by Chris at Light Guide Systems, how we made masks. So when we were asked to stand up and be counted, we believed that it was our patriotic duty to assist and provide whatever knowledge we have in the additive world. It's a dynamic change world. There isn't one person in America that can say today was the same as it was 6 months ago. And so we believe, and we wholeheartedly believe, that this grant will change the surface of manufacturing, not only in Michigan, but around the world. So I'm going to pass it off to my partner, Mike Cady, who's going to describe, and we'll do a little bit of kind of a back and forth describing how additive manufacturing is here to stay, how it has changed and evolved over the last, dozen or 20 years, and what it's going to be like in the future. So Mike, you want to take it away?
Matt, thank you, sir. And from an emergency response and preparedness perspective, as both yourself and Sean have underscored here, we live in a dynamic and changing world, right? From a customer.
Mike, you might want to speak up a little bit too, so you're a little soft.
Sorry, my apologies, Tom. We live in a dynamically changing world, right? Where requirements are changing. We've got challenging labor conditions, and contractions in the supply chain. And much of this has been illuminated as an outcome of the pandemic. And as Matt indicated, what we're here to talk about today is how we're going to work together and address these things. So if we move to the next slide, please. So public perception of additive has been quite skewed for many, many years. Industry monoliths have been obsessed over futuristic vanity applications instead of practical use cases. And it's taken the industry approximately 3 decades to reach a point whereby the technology is unlocking more and more productive applications. And today, 3D printing solutions are already transforming supply chains and manufacturers around the world. And everything you see here, from tools, gauges, grippers, jaws, molds, dies, housings, badges, weld shanks, air intakes, manifolds, safety guards, heat sinks, welding fixtures, cutter bodies, spares, prototypes, brackets, alignment jigs, CMM fixtures, and the story goes on, right? The industry mindset is shifting to solve problems that additive is good at and can address today. And we talk about agile manufacturing and supply chain optimization and efficiency. And this is a function of both the technical maturation on the product side and the implementation maturation from an operational execution perspective. And to do this, organizations have had to shift how they're thinking about this additive transformation. And I think no better than Matt on the line to talk about maybe an example from his past. Matt, would you maybe mind describing some of your experiences and the business value you've been able to lock?
Yeah, without a doubt, Michael. So everybody can say additive's been around forever in an SLA, making a visual prototype of what something might look like, had no value in the real world, right? And so when we started to adapt the additive mindset, the first place we took it to was work holding. And when we used a normal, traditional, or subtractive process to build that work holding fixture, and then we changed it, altered it to a very, very lightweight onyx with some reinforced carbon fiber with a metal H13 tip that did the grunt of the work. The part went from about 35 pounds down to a couple. So it went from a 2-man job for a setup, as well as the ergonomic savings, to a single job, saving in setup time, saving in materials. It was a savings all around, and we couldn't believe it. So we used that as our leapfrog when we now switched our mindset over to use additive for repair and maintenance. But it was an astronomical feat. It was a great project, and it was excellent. So pass it back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Matt. If we can go to the next slide, please. So how are we going to strengthen U.S. manufacturing starting right here in Michigan? As Tom mentioned in his keynote, we're going to put a network in place in calendar year 2020 as part of this phase 1 that will enable an agile print-on-demand capabilities for PPE in emergency response situations. So what happened earlier this year doesn't happen again. Markforged offers a simple, smart, scalable additive manufacturing platform that's built and designed on the secure cloud-connected architecture. And the software was built for scale, delivering a single user interface, digital part repository, and global fleet management capabilities across the entire network. And in phase 1, we're going to unlock the capability to print PPE on demand when needed across this entire network. And through the maturation process in phase 2, which will follow, we will enable the foundation to support the diversification via digital marketplace for business to business and the open community. Next slide, please. So who is Markforged? Markforged is an industrial grade 3D printing platform manufacturer. We transform manufacturing with 3D metal and continuous carbon fiber printing, capable of producing parts tough enough for the factory floor. Engineers, designers, Manufacturing professionals all over the world rely on this platform for tooling, fixturing, functional prototyping, high value end use production. And inside of this platform, it spans from industrial grade materials, which you can see on the left side of the screen, metals, to carbon fiber reinforced composite capabilities, to even copper on the metal side of the house. If you draw your attention to the center of the screen, we deliver a single user experience across our entire portfolio, from plastics to composites to metals. Software is simple and smart. It's one user interface, one support model, and one hand to shake. And all the way to the right, we have a very diverse and wide platform, from plastics to composites to metals, desktop technology to industrial technology, delivering unparalleled strength in the industry, built-in quality control and accuracy, and safe and accessible metal printing at 1/10 the cost of legacy or historical metal type technology. And so you're probably saying, okay, Mike, that's great, but what's required of me from an operational run perspective? Very simple. We have 40 printers in our print farm at our headquarters that produce 15,000 parts a month, and it's one operator, 24 days, 24 days a week, or I'm sorry, 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. So very minimal interaction needed to operate the technology. We've got the appropriate governance, risk, and compliance capabilities to ensure you have a secure, accessible, anywhere experience. And the technology, from an ease of use perspective, is onboarded with Industry 4.0 capabilities, full sensor suite for automation, and a footprint of about a microwave. So if you're thinking about real estate and space, doesn't take up too much space and very low cost to run. Next slide, please. And just a visual representation of the advancements that have happened over the years. I mentioned earlier on, approximately 3 decades have gone by, and starting about 2014, 2015 is really where additive manufacturing has started that maturation cycle in the context of this I 4.0 journey that we're currently on. And year over year, we continue to release new capabilities that are proof points to the industry maturation and the business value this creates for our customers. I think this is best demonstrated by the next slide, please, which shows the growth and maturity, again, over the last 6 years of all the different types of applications that our customers have brought onto our platform, and the amount of prints that have been generated on our global network over the years. So really excited to continue this journey with Automation Alley, and kind of wrap up here on the last slide. We talked about why additive manufacturing and why now from a business vitality and transformation perspective. Our customers are telling us upon implementation, adoption of the technology, they're able to become more competitive in their business and win new business. They're able to increase revenue, take cost out of the business, and improve manufacturing and supply chain efficiency. So with that said, I think we're here at time. I'll pass it back to you, Matt, and look forward to working with each and every one of you.
Thanks, Michael. And just to reiterate what Sean said, the grant and the purpose of everything we're doing is to strengthen the U.S. manufacturing base. So as the world changes and as we evolve as a country and as a manufacturing unit, part of this new technology, or the Industry 4.0 journey, must be part of it. And so one of the other agile technologies that we're going to be involved with this grant is light guide systems. And Chris, you want to take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt. Of course, thanks to both Automation Alley and Oakland County, where we call our home, for bringing us in and inviting us to participate in just a phenomenal program. Light Guide Systems is really the de facto leader in augmented reality manufacturing systems. You see our tagline, the right information in the right place and at the right time. And that's what we're all about. We're about for your what we believe most important assets, which are the human assets, right? The men and women who work in your factories, in your plants, in your labs, in your offices. We want to enable them to unlock human potential. So we do that by creating a visual workflow environment, so we can visualize any process, really complex manual process, through projected. We happen to live in this augmented reality space predominantly as a projected workflow solution. So not the goggles or the glasses that a lot of people think about from an augmented reality perspective, but one or multiple overhead projectors to create this visual environment. And that really prompts the team member on the factory floor in a step-by-step set of work instructions for assembly. And then we augment our systems with various sensors, 3D sensors, vision cameras, in order to confirm, in fact, that the right process is being followed, and that if anything is detected as a potential error or quality defect, we catch it in real time and we guide the operator to correct in real time. So it is a no faults forward form of processing parts. And then we build traceability. So every part we capture cycle time, step time, of course, any other information like serial number, operator ID that you might want to append to that build record. So we say just follow the lights and you'll drive productivity, throughput, quality, and really we create a zero ramp time type of environment. And how important is that for this PPE resilience program, right? To be able to enable it immediately, both the process, but more importantly, in our view, the people to be able to be immediately productive when the call comes. Next slide, please. Very quickly, proud to call our home Oakland County here in Southeast Michigan. Our corporate offices are in Wixom, but we do have a global footprint. You can see we've deployed hundreds of systems across our global footprint. Of course, here at home in the U.S., throughout North America, but also into every other continent, every other region around the globe. So we've been at this since 2005, really scaling commercially since 2010. So even though we're in this very exciting, fast-moving Industry 4.0 space as an augmented reality technology, we believe we bring street credential relative to growing up here in Southeast Michigan in Oakland County, being part of Automation Alley. All of us kind of grew up in the automotive industry and related industries. So that's where we're doing our work today. And a couple of videos just to show a few examples and form factors. This first one, we answered the bell almost immediately when we all had to go into lockdown. We saw a great opportunity. This is Will Somerville, our Chief Technology Officer, in his home office using a LightGuide Pro, the desktop version of LightGuide systems, to produce face masks, right? And you can see patterning happening here in real time, various components laid out and set up. We give a real-time guidance as to the order of assembly, in this case, how those patterns are cut and then sewn. And then you'll see various features being added as we continue through the build, adding the nose piece, if you will, for shaping. And then finally, will proudly demonstrate his build. And we produced thousands of masks in a very short period of time. Those mostly went to those in need in elderly care centers and other places where there was such a dire need for PPE. So we were proud to answer the bell very quickly there back at the beginning of the crisis. So that is what we call LightGuide Pro, a desktop version. And then next slide, we're going to show you what a system can look like more in a traditional factory environment: overhead projector, side-by-side touch screen monitors, a predefined build table. This is our smaller version. We have a larger version. And you'll see our operator walk up, very intuitive user interface, both on the touch screens very mobile. You can see this rolling through the factory and into the training lab. And of course, we always start with a training regime, a step-by-step guidance for how any given part, in this case, it happens to be a hydraulic pump, could just as easily be a face mask, a shield, or even ventilator parts if it comes to that. So touch screen, interactive, immersive experience, step-by-step with confirmation, 3D or vision confirmation. And ultimately, we go from that training to actually certifying with a quick quiz. We'll issue a certificate. Now your team member is trained, and it's very easy to program in Light Guide to drag and drop work instructions, whether they be visual, animations, videos, pictures, text, etc. As part of this program, all of that training, I should say training programming and assembly programming will be done by us. So it will be very turnkey, very easy, and again, zero ramp in terms of deploying Light Guide systems into your environment and being immediately productive. So with that, Matt, I'll turn it back to you and look forward to answering any questions that might come.
That's great, Chris. Thank you. And just one comment, just the overarching, structure of how this is. If you can imagine an augmented reality or even a real reality red button. So when the red button is pushed and we feel that there needs to be the emergency response network made, all of the parts that are on this network, whether it's a printer, whether it's Leica or whatever, will now jump all in suit instantly as the network will push everything forward into its now manufacturing mode. And all of a sudden, all of the PPE that Sean was talking about earlier will be a response. So it's an unbelievable feeling. It's a fantastic event. And I think we're ready for some Q&A, and I'll pass it back to you, Tom.
Thanks, Matt. So the questions have been coming in, and you'll see some of them I've answered while the presentation was occurring. If I didn't answer it to your satisfaction, please ask it again. But let me start with a simple one, and it's to Chris. And that's from Karen, which is, can the Light Guide system have a much larger table to handle isolation gowns?
Yeah, absolutely. The version we showed there was our smaller form factor. There is a larger version of that table, which is 60 inches wide and 36 inches deep. So that should be able to accommodate an isolation gown or larger PPE to be assembled for sure.
Awesome, thank you. So the other question that came in is, if we don't have a current manufacturing facility locally, but have the experience, does this grant help in starting manufacturing in Oakland County? And the answer is, hell yeah. Let's figure out how to do this. So what I do is I encourage you to apply, but make sure we know that you're interested in coming to Oakland County, right? That is the requirement, right? So that we don't automatically discount you as, hey, this person's from somewhere else and they automatically don't qualify. So yes, absolutely, we want you to be a part of that. And then someone asked Michael Katie, how do we get a hold of you? And perhaps you can give somebody your quick email address.
Sure, happy to do so in the chat, if that's okay.
Great. Do it in the Q&A because they can see the Q&A sometimes, or all panelists in the chat. Sure. And we'll get that out there. So I want to make sure that people realize what's happening here. So the grant that came from Sean in Oakland County allows us to purchase technology in the form of either 3D printers or augmented reality assembly stations. Between those two, we can make all kinds of PPE, grant that technology to you, teach you how to use the technology, teach you how to make PPE using that technology. And then after we teach you that, you're able to do anything in 3D. If you think about it, 3D is the path, additive manufacturing is the path to make anything at any time for anyone. And what we want to do is, through the guise of solving a national problem for PPE and an Oakland County problem for PPE, putting this region in a position where we have 300 manufacturers seated in Oakland County that understand what it means to be an additive manufacturer or be an Industry 4.0 manufacturer. And what we hope to do after that seating is to say, look, you have an obligation to us. And that obligation is you give back to the community and you teach your neighbor your manufacturing neighbor how to do 3D printing. How do you get it into production? How do you make money off it? And we'll help get you to that point. And then you have an obligation to society, to our manufacturing brothers and sisters, to say, we're all in this together. And if we can have hundreds and hundreds of manufacturers in Oakland County and Macomb County understanding how to navigate from subtractive to additive, we will be a global powerhouse. But it starts with one little simple proposition, and that is, let's make PPE for the people that need it today. And let's do it in a way, we could certainly buy it cheaper. And Sean and I have talked about this. If I wanted to make a cheap mask, I'm going to get it from China. And quite frankly, that irritates the hell out of me. But what we want to be able to do is be resilient and agile and be able to make anything at any time. It's not about making the cheapest mask. It's about making a community that understands how to make anything at any time at scale. Because once you have 300 printers on the network, let's say, I can make between 100,000 and 500,000 parts a year, depending on the complexity of that part. I'm going to say that again. With a mere 300 additive printers on the network, I can make 100,000 to 500,000 parts. I'm as big as any big tier one that's out there. And that's just with a small node. If we had 1,000 manufacturers, imagine where we could go. And with light guide systems, augmented reality, you could have some manufacturers printing components that then get distributed to another manufacturer that uses the light guide system to assemble all those components with very little training. You can practically pull somebody off the street, sit them down, and they know how to do it. That's the premise. That's the hope. And so, Matt, I'll turn it back to you, but I want to make sure that wasn't lost on the audience of what we're able to do.
Hey,
Yeah.
Matt.
Sure.
Matt, I just want to jump in and just kind of bumper on Tom's comments there, and just remind everyone as well, one of the benefits of being part of this program, and I hope it doesn't happen, but if there is a shutdown by a governor's executive order or something, any manufacturing company that is part of this PPE program will be considered an essential company and will be able to remain and keep its doors open from an Oakland County perspective. So any health orders or anything else. So that's a collateral benefit of being part of this network.
Yeah, great point, Sean. And one other thing I'd like to go back in the Q&A that was talking about, I don't know anything about this, and will I be, can I get help, and do I need experience? We're expecting you not to have experience, but what we're expecting you to have is an open mind and change your mindset to think about making things a different way. And not only to stand up to the bell, to help Michigan and all of the PPE, but then to change your manufacturing process to want to try and invent different things and different way of life. It is a blessing that this is happening for everybody on the phone today, without a doubt. Now, to go back to, will there help be available? Yes, there is a university that is online that teaches you everything you need to know about additive, and it is all completely part of the program. The program. And to just touch on one thing, sorry, Tom, is that maybe wasn't clear when we were originally talking, is when the printer that is physically in your space is on a network, you don't need to only print to that one printer. So what would have taken, say the print takes an hour and you want 300 parts, it would have been 300 hours plus setup time back to back to back. Now you go 300 across, those 300 parts are now made in an hour across the entire network. If you think about that, it's now become staggering. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, so I wanted to get to some questions, Matt, if we're ready.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
A couple of the attendees, I see P. Chapman. I don't. That might be Paul Chapman, who I know well. I don't know if it's him or not, but forgive me if it's not Paul. But it's P. Chapman asked, once PPE certified, can the tech be then applied to regular production? And the answer is yes. That's exactly what we want to have happen. That you have a comfort level with, I understand how to make 3D additive manufactured parts. Now, with the caveat that the agreement that we set between ourselves and you, the manufacturer, it will have some stipulation that says when Oakland County needs PPE, you drop everything and you make PPE. That's the trade-off. We give you this equipment, but with the stipulation that if there's a crisis, if we push that red button, you stop what you're doing, you make the PPE order that we've given you, and you send it off to the warehouse that Sean has set up for PPE, right? That's the trade-off. That's the give and take. But the whole idea is we want you to use this for production. We want you on our network. We want you to be able to be a part of the network where it's not just your machine, but it's multiple machines that bigger companies have access to do real production with real volume. And this is a way for smalls to really participate in this future economy. So Dave Derbyshire asked Matt, will the grant help cover the cost of buying material if our business already has a functioning 3D printing studio? Dave, what I'd suggest is go ahead and apply for the grant and we'll talk through that. There's a lot of moving parts on this. One of the issues we have is the reason why we're going with Mark Forged early is we have to control how the network gets set up. And we don't have time in the short grant to be able to take other 3D printing systems and work to get them incorporated into the system early on. So we will have to do a little dance around that. But Dave, good friend of the alley, glad you're with us. Apply and we'll talk through that problem. When will the decision be made about grant awards? It's going to be on a rolling basis and you should apply today, but very important that you understand you may not hear from us today, right? We have to get started. It'll probably be in the September timeframe that you actually hear from us and we say, here's the things you need to do. And it's not going to be painful. It's going to be, how do I receive delivery of my technology and what are the requirements for me to learn how to use that? And the requirements will be nothing you're not capable of doing. It's not like going to a 40-hour class and getting consumed in deep education and certification requirements. This is going to be much less painful. Really about you having an inquisitive personality. Say, I want to learn how to do this, and then I'm going to be able to start the machine or tend it while it makes parts. So let me keep going with questions here, if that's okay with everybody. And all of our panelists, if anybody has anything to add, by all means, as I'm talking, feel free to jump in there. In fact, our panelists can see the questions as well. If you see something you'd like to react to, by all means, jump right in here. So one of the questions from Paige, I believe, was what are the eligibility requirements for the applicants? The eligibility is you must be a manufacturer in Oakland County. At the time of the award, you must be a manufacturer in Oakland County. So we talked about someone wanting to move to Oakland County. You'd want to already be in. We can't, do it on the if come. In other words, you have to be in Oakland County. And Sean, I assume I'm correct in saying that. You've got to be a manufacturer in Oakland County.
That is correct.
Okay, great. Since the grant is competitive, what are the deciding criteria for what companies receive it versus who don't? If we are substantially oversubscribed, then what we'll have to do is decide, is it a first come, first serve? So make sure you get your application into us. What we want to see are manufacturers that understand what we're trying to do and are willing to work with us to create this network. So we think that we'll be oversubscribed. So I encourage you to get your application in and we will reach out to you and we will have qualification criteria that we are working on together with Oakland County as we speak. It's not fully finalized, so I don't want to be giving you false hurdles of fire to go through when in fact we may keep some requirements and jettison others. We're working through this right now. That's why I said you won't hear from us till maybe closer to September as we begin to finalize the actual requirements for this grant.
And Tom, on that same note, maybe to respond back to the survey as it comes up as quickly as possible too.
Yeah, so I'll jump in here. This is Pavan. So
hey, there's Pavan.
Yeah, I've been quiet, but so you know, as Tom's been saying, as we've been put on the chat box, we have automationalley.com/PPE grant. That's the first thing you should do. We want to keep this process extremely friendly, but we are being agile as well in this process in trying to figure out what is the best way to get this technology to you so that it can be, a benefit to you, not only on the PPE side, but also, as we've talked about, helping you on the manufacturing side. So one of the first things we do in this, and some companies have already applied since we made that early press announcement a few weeks back. So we still have applications coming in. One of the first things we'll do is have a conversation with you on the state of your business, understanding where you are in manufacturing. Don't be discouraged because you haven't done a ton of manufacturing, because in reality, as we've talked about before, this is quite different from what you might already be doing. If you haven't done additive, if you haven't done light guided augmented reality, it's going to be new technology. And we're looking for the companies that are going to essentially roll up their sleeves and be part of this journey. So don't be discouraged by anything. Don't make any assumptions. Apply, be part of the process. And then when our team gets back to you, work with us on getting us the information that we're requesting from you as soon as possible, because that kind of gets us to kind of move quickly as well. Our team is kind of, sprinting on our side. And if you come with us on that sprint, it'll be very, very helpful. So, it's our hope and expectation that we'll make this an enjoyable journey for everybody. And then, this is something that hopefully goes beyond PPE, but we absolutely have to be completely ready for the PPE call if it ever comes.
Yeah, great answer, Pavan. So somebody just asked a really interesting question, and we have Sean Carlson with us. So the question was, when you stop everything and produce for Oakland County because you pushed the red button, I love it, and people already know that. Would you do that for free? Or would you get paid for that production? So let me answer this two ways and then let Sean jump in here. The idea would be there'll be an initial small production run, one, just to validate that you know how to do it. And that it's not going to go to waste. We're going to use that, and we probably wouldn't pay you for that production run as we're learning how to do this. But future production runs, when Sean says, I got an urgent need, Tom, I'm pushing the button, our expectation is that you will be paid for that. Is that correct, Sean?
That is correct. Yeah. So you're absolutely correct, Tom. Part of this is we want to make sure and validate that what we do receive on the front end, as people are getting qualified, if they're making face shields or face masks or hand sanitizer or whatever it might be, that we have an initial quantity supply that we receive, but we realize that will be very small. But in the future, when, as Tom said, the red buttons hit, and we're going to be pushing out purchase orders, and we will pay for those purchase orders. So the key is that we have our team that can produce it and turn it around and get it into our community for the safety of our community as quick as possible.
Thanks, Sean.
Gary Rose question about a micro plant. There's a question about a micro plant to be set up in homes. Yeah. And that's a very interesting question. So I'll kind of answer it as sort of phase one and phase two. So the phase one objective, right, is to make sure that we are completely, as we've said before, ready for any PPE need. But the objective long term is to create a mechanism for you to do exactly that. That is for you to be able to participate on any network, on any form factor that you might find comfortable. And if that happens to be a microplant at home, as long as you meet the criteria of participating on the network, being able to respond to orders, being able to produce effectively, why not? In fact, that's an extremely interesting
let me embellish on that a little bit. So if you were white collar and the pandemic hit, everybody went home and was just as productive as if they were there. If you were a manufacturer, and as Sean said, you weren't part of the holy grail of
essential workers.
Essential workers. you lost your revenue stream because you couldn't have people together to make things. If you could say, hey, Bob, you're taking that printer home, and Ted, you're taking that printer home, and they're on the internet. It's our intention that you should be able to do this, and we should work towards that. It's highly efficient to be able to do that. So,
and
interesting to think about.
Tom, of course, you saw in the video, we responded immediately with home-based work in order to produce PPE. So, absolutely, I'm sure, both on the 3D side, most certainly on the light guide system side, enabling home-based work, that microplant is a phenomenal concept, very powerful. We're pursuing that with a lot of different constituents to enable even some portions of our workforce for disability inclusion, for instance, people who don't typically or regularly have the opportunity to go into a more traditional factory environment. So it's a very powerful concept, and I think as this program evolves, I'm sure we'll look into how that can really become reality.
Yeah, and Gary asked, is there a minimum size of manufacturer required? No. If you're a very small manufacturer, we want you. In fact, in some ways, you might be the most hungry to say this is a great revenue opportunity. I could really be on the cutting edge of where the world is going, and not a lot of people have that knowledge today. Big companies have been doing a lot of R&D, but not at the small level. Yeah, man.
And Tom, that now small guy will have access to a much, much larger network that they never would have had the possibility of even close to approaching before. Because as that network grows, the large mega, manufacturers of the world use these every day, but they only have a small, additive base that they're going from. So now, you look at the Ford Mustang on the GT350, that is additively produced. It's more of a trinket than anything else, but it's still produced on every vehicle. Rather than having a fleet, they could now push this out to everybody else. So now you're a one-man shop. You could be supplying a part to Ford, for example.
Yeah, and so that reminded me. So as we're talking about, people keep asking, what's the criteria? I would say the core criteria is bring your can-do attitude. Yeah. This network is not just going to build itself. We are going to take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back and 4 steps forward and 3 steps back. It's going to be frustrating at times, but we're building something that has sustainable worth and huge global competitive advantage if we do this right, and not competitive advantage because of scale. The world has worked since the 20s that competitive advantage always related to scale. And we are now entering an era where competitive advantage and scale are divorced from each other. It's really the knowledge you have. And if you have one printer, you can make the profit that sustains you, or you could have 2 printers and make the profit sustain you and someone else, or you could have 300 printers on the network. And it's all divorced from the scale equation. The scale becomes the network, just like the internet is the scale for information. So
I'm sorry, Tom. Yeah. Or vice versa. If you have a product that you've designed that you can't get manufactured, it now goes the opposite way, where now your product is available for relatively anybody to buy. No different than an app store or whatever it may be. So I've designed something that I know everybody else in the universe may want to use. And now I put my hand up and say, hey, I'm now for sale. I have no way to make it, but somebody else now does.
That's
very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting thought.
Tom, I just want to jump in here too and say, just as a reminder, the program that we're building here, yes, it is for PPE. It is for us to make sure that we have some independence when a pandemic hits, or the second wave of the current pandemic that we're in, and that we have a bench of manufacturers that are ready to go. So part of that ready to go is not just the ability to produce PPE, because we don't know what the next crisis is going to bring. It's having that technology and being around. Part of this is making sure that if we are working with 300, a network of 300, the next pandemic or crisis may not hit within the next 3 or 4 or 5 years. But if it is, we want to make sure that we've got this network in place to respond to whatever that crisis is. That's the key here. And in order to be around, that means that there needs to be an adoption of the Industry 4.0 industry that's here, and the understanding that you need to move your thinking and your process to embrace this, to be part of it, because in order to be around, I might not have a purchase order for you next year. Hopefully I don't, because I'm sick of this COVID-19. But if it's still here, that I'll have a purchase order from that perspective. But if not, your purchase orders need to come from the Department of Defense or the Department of Homeland Security or GM or someone else, and you're more likely to get those purchase orders. And that's where the word resilience comes in too, is that we have a network that's here that is flourishing because they have adopted and integrated the Industry 4.0 into their manufacturing. So I just want to make sure that I'm emphasizing that point of the resilience of what we're trying to build here.
That's right. Think of all the products in the world that exist where spare parts are no longer manufactured, and it's actually, it costs a lot of money for those companies to maintain inventory on those parts. It's never been an efficient network to be able to have a relationship that says, hey, just build the part and ship it out right when it comes. The military has that problem. Big companies with not just vehicles, but all kinds of capital equipment have problems with maintaining spare parts. Build a 3D printing additive manufacturing network that allows you to make any part. You give me any drawing and I push it to that printer will make it. Think about what we've opened up, that we're building this distributed, independent, agile manufacturing on-demand network. It's really powerful. So we've gone an hour. I don't know, there's all of the questions that I'm seeing have been answered already. They've been asked in little different ways. Do you guys, if there's any other questions, please ask them right now, but I'm thinking we may want to wrap at an hour so that it becomes a teachable document going forward. There will be others that come in and watch this video.
Tom, here's what I would suggest for anybody who has unanswered questions or they didn't get exactly the same the answer that they were looking for. Please just go ahead and apply using the form. And in your comments, you can ask the question that you still have, questions about, because there's a comments field that basically says that, and if you're not a manufacturer, but you're maybe kind of wondering how you might fit, apply. It doesn't matter. We are not concerned with the volume of applications. We would love to hear from you. And if you're not exactly a fit, we'll still keep you in the loop, because we expect this to grow beyond what we want it to, and we'll bring you in. But any questions, just go ahead, go to the form, automationalley.com/PPE grant, and there's a form. And if you're a manufacturer, select the I'm a manufacturer button, and then go ahead and enter your information in your primary activities, put in the question that you also had. And if you're not a manufacturer, there's another button for you as well. So, this is a continuing conversation, and we'll kind of work on it together.
Any final comments, Sean?
No, I just thank everybody the opportunity to log on here today. As we mentioned yesterday, we're looking for tomorrow's heroes today, and this is critical for our manufacturing community to rise up to this challenge and be a part of this very important effort for the county and for the United States. Thank you.
Fantastic. With that, I couldn't say it any better, so we're going to leave it right there. Thanks everybody for joining us, and apply. Don't forget to apply.